Thank you so much for inviting us here today. I'm here with my son, Jack, and he came to the first service. I don't think he's here at the second service, so he's hiding somewhere. But I'm Patricia Batten. Really, it's a privilege to be here. I spoke at the women's retreat last January, so I know many of the women, and it's been great to see some familiar faces. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you that it's perfect, that it's true. You've given it to us so that we might know you. God, reveal it to us today, and I ask that you would have mercy on me, the preacher, a sinner, forgiven, as I preach your word. In Jesus' name, amen. If Jesus were walking through your neighborhood, imagine, I picture my home, Newburyport, Massachusetts, the North Shore of Boston, doing the dishes, looking out the window, and imagine if Jesus just walked by with his entourage of disciples. What would you do? Would you know what to say to him? I imagine many of us wouldn't have to think about it for too long. Really, what is that one thing that you have been praying about, that has been on your heart and on your mind? Would you take that one thing to Jesus, run out to him and say, Jesus, you're in my neighborhood. Help me with. Or I need mercy when it comes to my relationship, my finances, Lord. Jesus, I need mercy when it comes to raising my kids or taking care of my parents. Lord, I need mercy in my job. It's so stressful. What is that one thing that you would go to Jesus with if he were just walking down your street? I imagine you don't even have to think about it. You know. In the passage we'll read today from Matthew chapter 15, we meet a woman who cries out for mercy because Jesus just so happens to be walking through her neighborhood. And she knows exactly what she needs. So she cries out for mercy. Would you please turn to Matthew chapter 15, beginning in verse 21. Matthew 15, verse 21. It's up on the screen. If you want to look along in your pew Bible, it's page 797. Matthew 15, verse 21. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she cried. He replied, It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, she said, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered, Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. It's one of the strangest stories in Scripture because you read it and you think, that is not my Sunday school Jesus. He doesn't answer that way. Jesus doesn't talk like that. But we've got this woman who is a complete outsider, a woman, a mother, an outsider, and she is begging for his mercy because she knows that he is the only one who can give her the mercy that she needs. Do you know what it's like to cry out to God for mercy? For that one thing, Lord, have mercy. I remember a few years ago, we had a rough winter. They all seem to be rough, don't they? But I think this was the winter when we had like 3 blizzards in a row, like 3 weekends in a row. It was the winter that the snow was piled high. I remember in the shopping mart till July. There was still snow in July. It's one of the winters where you just couldn't get warm. And I remember in late February, I had had enough. And the kids seemed to be wild. Everybody was inside. Everybody was sick. And my mother was sick and lots of things going on. I remember crying out for mercy. And my husband came home with flowers one day. I remember this because my husband never comes home with flowers. And he came home with flowers one day. And they were yellow tulips and they were beautiful, but this was late February and they were cinched tight like this. And I remember coming down after a couple of days. I plunged them into a blue vase, put them on the piano, and looking at them every once in a while and thinking, when are they going to open? And of course, my husband, he's a cost guy. And I thought, did he get me on sale tulips? You know, like what's going on with their trick tulips? What's going on with these tulips? And they just would not open. And I remember thinking by the end of the week, after crying out for God's mercy, looking at these tulips and just saying, just open. You know, and it was reminding me of how God, I felt, was treating me with his mercy. Like, Lord, why are you cinched tight with your mercy? Can't you just open up a little and give me some of it? Well, we've got this woman here who is crying out for God's mercy. She says, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession. Now that's interesting, isn't it? That she's worried about her daughter, right? But when she runs out to Jesus and cries for mercy, she says, Lord, have mercy on me. Not on my daughter. She needs Jesus' help with her daughter, but she says, Lord, have mercy on me. But you know it makes sense. You know it makes sense. Because if you have ever cared for anybody long and hard and with everything you've got, then you know the mercy you need. You know that you need mercy. Think about this woman. Her daughter, demon-possessed, suffering terribly. This woman cannot sleep at night, so she cries out for God's mercy. She can't sleep at night because she's up worrying about her daughter. She ruminates about the past, and she worries about the future. She cannot sleep at night, so she cries out for God's mercy. She needs mercy. This woman cries out to Jesus for mercy because those moments when she does catch a few moments of sleep, she's woken up in the middle of the night by these horrific cries from her daughter who's only feet away from her, and this mother has nothing to tell her, nothing to give her. She's out of words, so this woman needs mercy. This woman needs mercy because she remembers earlier in the week as she walked through the marketplace with her daughter that other parents with typical children crossed to the other side to protect their children, shield them from her daughter. Yes, this woman needs mercy. This woman needs mercy because when she looks in her daughter's eyes, she is not there. What happened to my little girl? Where did you go? This woman needs mercy. She cries out to Jesus, needing mercy as a mother. She's crying out as a woman. She cries out to Jesus as an outsider. She's not Jewish. She is a Gentile. So as an outsider, that simply means that she is not an approved recipient of God's mercy. God's mercy was given to God's people, the people of the covenant. She wasn't Jewish. She wasn't a person of the covenant. She was outside of that. So she is begging for mercy, not only as a woman, not only as a mother, but she's begging for mercy as an outsider, someone who everyone else saw. She's not one of us. She doesn't deserve God's mercy. But even more than that, she's crying out for God's mercy as an enemy. Yeah. I mean, if you look right in your Bibles there at verse 22, Matthew actually tells us that a Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out. Now, the funny thing about this term Canaanite, it's an odd designation because it's only used once in the New Testament. One time, right here, is the only time the word Canaanite is used. That's because there were no Canaanites in this time. They didn't exist anymore. They were gone. So why on earth does Matthew, in recording this event, describe her as a Canaanite? Because that's how the Jewish people saw her. Once a Canaanite, always a Canaanite. And this word conjured up terrible images of the long ago and the far away. It was the Canaanites in the Older Testament who drew God's people away from God and led them into idolatry. So they began to worship carved images of stone and wood, and they left their God. It was those Canaanites. Canaanites couldn't be trusted. Canaanites could never have a relationship with God. Once a Canaanite, always a Canaanite. So we've got this woman, this mother, this outsider, this enemy coming to Jesus and begging for mercy. But isn't it interesting that Jesus is walking through her neighborhood? So there he is, and she comes out, and we're told in verse 23 that Jesus did not answer a word. Can you imagine this? Imagine the scene. This woman comes out, this one thing that she has on her heart, on her mind, that she knows she needs mercy for, and Jesus, he doesn't say anything, says nothing. As if he's ignoring her. And it's almost as if he's waiting for his disciples, who are, of course, with him, to pipe up and, what would you do, guys? And he waits, and they do. They kick in, and they say, "Send her away," verse 23, "for she keeps crying out after us." Send her away, Lord. That's what we do. Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. So Jesus seems to take their lead. And he says, verse 24, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." Here I'm thinking, oh, Lord, come on. Why did you ever say that? But he says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. I mean, I'm here for the Jewish people. You are not one of them. So, and that's all he says. Then the woman came, we're told in verse 25, and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. So now at this point, this woman has stopped the flow of traffic. I mean, everything stopped. She comes before him. They are headed. They are on their way somewhere. And she creates this barrier. Kneels, "Lord, help me." Because she knows that he is the only one who can give her the mercy that she needs. So she stops everything. Could you imagine doing that? After you had been rejected already, but in the midst of this gaggle of disciples, she knows how they feel about her. Yet she persists in pursuing Jesus. Despite the looks, the glares, the whispers that say, she doesn't deserve God's mercy. And you know what? She doesn't. But neither did they. The fact of the matter is, none of us deserve God's mercy. Not one of us. But he gives it to us just the same. What is God's mercy? God's mercy hung on a wooden cross. God's mercy was sealed in a tomb covered with a cold stone slab. God's mercy rose with the dawn on Easter morning. God's mercy is the peace treaty signed with the blood of Jesus that says forgiven fully, freely, forever. That is God's mercy, and not one of us deserves it. But he gives it to us just the same. So here she is, begging, Lord, have mercy on me. Even while those around her despise her. And Jesus says to her, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. I read this and I think, oh, Lord, you missed it. That's not what you're supposed to say here. But that's what he says. And we'd love to just get rid of this verse, but he says it. Now, commentators throughout the years have really tried to soften this verse. And it's true that in the Greek, the word dog is little dog. Your little dog. But when you called somebody a dog or referred to dog, it was an insult, no matter how you sliced it, for Jews and Gentiles. I mean, it was a big insult. And here he is, not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs, meaning you're one of the dogs. Wow. What's going on here? Ken Bailey was actually a Presbyterian scholar. He lived in the Middle East for many, many decades. In fact, Pastor Dahl just told me that he had been to this church many years ago giving lectures. But Ken Bailey explains this passage this way. He says, what Jesus is doing here is he's teaching his disciples. He intended to call her dog, but what he's doing is he's demonstrating to his disciples what their prejudices actually look like when they're acted upon. He's showing them, he knows what they think in their hearts and in their minds, and he's saying, okay, all right, yeah, I'll take your lead. I'll play this out. Are you really comfortable with this situation? Are you really okay with this woman on her hands and knees begging for mercy? You're really okay with continuing to view her as a dog, an enemy, an outsider, a woman, a mother, somebody who doesn't matter. Are you comfortable with this? Jesus is teaching his disciples something about God's mercy. The extent of God's mercy, it's so much bigger than they ever would have imagined. It reaches across all kinds of boundaries, geographical and racial divides. God's mercy is so much bigger than they had understood. I have 3 boys, Jack, Sam, and Timothy. And surprise, surprise, we have another baby on the way. My oldest is 14, and when Jack entered school, I went over to the school system. We live adjacent to the school, and I got quarried and fingerprinted, and I said, I'd love to volunteer at the school. Can I volunteer? And they said, sure. Did all your paperwork, and they sent me to the cafeteria. So have you ever volunteered in the cafeteria? Yeah, okay, so that's where I was, and it was once a week. I mean, it was 20 minutes, but I thought it was just going to do me in. So 20 minutes, and, you'd help kids open their milk cartons, things like that. little kids would come and they were carrying those styrofoam trays, right? And they were heavy for them. And they'd dump them in the barrel, but often would miss. So I would clean that up. And there's ketchup everywhere. I would dream about ketchup. And I would leave volunteering, and I just had this little headache every day after I left. So by the time Sam got into school, I said, okay, is there anything else I can do? I did cafeteria duty. It was an experience. And they said, Pat, we could use you outside for recess duty. And I said, okay, sure, why not? I'll give recess duty a try. So I did recess duty, and this is New England, right? They send those kids, they get them out of those teachers. They want them out of the building, no matter what the weather is. So freezing cold, you're helping kids with their boots, and I can't find my mitten and my hat, and I stood there just freezing, like shivering the whole time, and I felt like I was always yelling, don't run, too fast, that kind of thing. And by the time Timothy got into school, I said, okay, to the receptionist, Elaine, I said, listen, I've done the cafeteria. I've done recess duty. What else do you have? You've got to have something better. And she said, Pat, library. And I said, yes. So I did the library. And the library, that is the place, okay? If there are any new mothers, just go straight to the library. Okay, so I got there about 20 minutes before Timmy's class came in, pre-K class, 3 and 4-year-olds. They can't read, but they came to the library, and they lined up outside the door like little toy soldiers, and they didn't say a word. Shh, we're in the library. It's real quiet. And I was over in the corner. I was reshelving all of the literary greats, Captain Underpants, you know them. And I was getting them back in the shelves. And the kids came in, and they were told to choose one book, only one book. And they were all, face out. And Timothy got a book, and he put it under his arm, and it was dinosaurs. He was really into dinosaurs. And I sat over they had steps like this. I sat down, and Timmy plunked on my lap, and it just feels so good. He plunked on my lap, and we began to read about dinosaurs. And then I've got 3 boys. All these little girls came in for story time. Just the best feeling. And then there's another little boy named Brian. Bumbling Brian. Brian was the kind of kid who could not just choose one book. He chose several books, and he would put them all under his arms, and he'd walk over, and just a trail of books falling. Brian, the other thing about Brian was he constantly had, if you've been around kids, you teach, you have children, that kind of thing, he had what we called magical mucus. It was like just this stream of green that constantly ran from his nose. And you'd say, Brian, use a tissue. And he'd use a tissue and whoop, come right back. That was Brian. His hair was a little wild. And he came, and he was not from the lap of luxury. But when he saw my lap, he said, that would be a luxury. And he came over, and he did one of these. Scooted Timothy right off of my lap. He fell off. And Brian sat down with monster trucks. And Timmy was startled, and he climbed back up, and he said, no, dinosaurs, monster trucks, dinosaurs, monster trucks. And I thought, oh, this just got so stressful. I want to go back to the cafeteria. And so I opened dinosaurs, and I opened monster trucks, and I did one of these. The dinosaur was marching down the road and ran into a monster truck in the city, and they didn't like any of that. And it was back and forth, and finally Timothy, my Timothy, with a sad and mad face, said, Mom, make him go away. Make him go away. And isn't that just what the disciples say to Jesus? Make her go away. God's lap is not big enough for somebody like her. She's an outsider. She's an enemy. She's a woman. She's a mother. Send her away. But Jesus is teaching his disciples something about God's mercy. It's so much bigger than they ever could have imagined. But Jesus is also doing more than that. Yes, he's teaching his disciples, but he is also testing this woman's faith. I mean, he pushes it with her, doesn't he? If I had been that woman, I wonder if I would have broken down into tears and thought, Jesus, he doesn't like me, or I never should have come, or maybe I would have slunk back into the crowd, or maybe I would have stomped off mad and angry and said, these people, this was a mistake. But she doesn't. She leans into Jesus, and she continues on this journey because she knows that Jesus is the only one who can give her the mercy that she desperately needs. That is faith. It is sticking with Jesus. Even when the onlookers glare, she sticks with him, and she comes up with the best reply. Verse 27, yes, Lord, she said, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. She is not giving up. And what Jesus is doing here is he's testing her faith. He wants to see what her faith is made out of. Great tests are given to great students, and she is a great student. And I'm wondering if you are a great student. Have you been given a great test today, this week, this month, over the last couple of years? Are you in the midst of your one thing that you desperately need mercy for? And there are times when you feel like crying and saying, do you even care, God? Or storming off mad because he has not answered. Maybe you're in the midst of a great test, and he's seeing what your faith is made out of. And in this time, could you just stick with him? Stay with him. Our little guy plays cello, and I do use the word play lightly. We have a cello in our home. And I don't know a thing about stringed instruments, but they sure do sound pretty here. And at one point, Timmy said, you have to tune the instrument. That's a cello. I recognize that. Yes. All right. That is this is a little smaller. And so, gee, I should have spoken to you before I said this. But so we got these big tuning pegs right up top there, and then you have these fine tuning pegs down bottom. So I just went for the big ones. I have a piano, and I could hear, okay, that's flat or that's sharp. And I just cranked those top pegs, just big crank, and the string just snapped and went flying across the room. And Timmy said, you broke my cello. And I said, Mommy's so sorry. But sometimes don't you feel like God is just tightening the string, and you feel like you might snap? I feel like that's what he does with this woman. He is pushing it. He is putting the pressure on. But God will never tighten so much that we snap. But boy, does it come close, doesn't it? It comes close. But it's in that time when we persist in pursuing him that our faith grows immensely. So can you continue in him as he tests and tightens? He says to this woman in verse 28, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. She passed the test. She stuck with Jesus. She trusted that he was the only one who had the mercy she needed. Now, I have to wonder how the disciples heard this. Telling this woman, this outsider, this mother, this enemy, that she had great faith. I have to wonder how Peter heard this. Because Matthew, in the chapter before this, tells us about the time when Jesus was walking on water. Chapter 14. You know the story. The disciples were out on a boat, and Jesus came walking on water, and they thought, is that a ghost? And then they realize it's Jesus. Peter jumps out, he runs toward Jesus, and he's walking on water too. And it's amazing. But then all of a sudden, the wind whips up fierce fists of rain and pelts him. And he stops looking at Jesus, and he looks at everything around him, and he begins to sink. And he cries out, Lord, help me. And Jesus saves him from drowning, pulls him out. And do you remember what Jesus said to Peter? You of little faith. Wow. That must have stung for Peter when he heard Jesus say to this woman that she had great faith. Big dog disciple has little faith. Little dog woman has great faith. Can you stick with Jesus? Can you have great faith and stick with him? Great faith stays the course. Little faith walks away because it says the storm is getting too rough. But great faith stays with Jesus. Little faith takes its eyes off of Jesus, but great faith keeps its eyes on Jesus no matter what the circumstance and situation is. Can you have great faith in your situation? Back to those tulips. 2 weeks had gone by, and those tulips were still cinched tight. They refused to open. And I remember this day because it was like a carnival in our home. It was supper time, which is pretty typical for us. By the end of the 2 weeks, the tulips had been forgotten, and the only fragrance in the house was the smell of taco meat, simmering in the pan and permeating every nook and cranny of our home. The kitchen was in full swing, and I was head cook. We topped our shells with mounds of cheese and a heaping side of supper time insanity. The dogs and the cat played a wild game of tag under our feet, and the kids raced back and forth. They were chasing balls and Legos and spelling homework and army men. Rich and I barked out orders to insubordinate soldiers. The scene was uncivilized. That is supper time at the Battens. We were waiting to hear from the doctor about one of our son's lab results. I had wedged an old-fashioned water bottle behind my back in the chair because I had pulled my back. It completely went out that morning doing something meaningful and heroic. Actually, I just woke up and I pulled up the covers and my back went out in bed. That's all I did. Someone dropped a glass. It broke and smattered everywhere, and it was a complete circus. Then the red-cheeked little one zoomed by, and he crashed on my lap like a wave of fury on an unsuspecting seashore. And you know how kids do that? They run up to your lap, and they dig an elbow right here, with everything in, right here like this. And Timothy stuck his elbow in, and he wagged a pudgy little finger up to the vase and the flowers. And he said, "Look, Mom, your tulips hatched." It's just what he said. And all of a sudden, the circus around me didn't matter anymore because the tulips had hatched. And I was reminded that in the midst of the carnival, in the roar of the uproar, God's mercy blooms just when you need it. So for you here today, maybe God is teaching you something about his mercy. Maybe he's testing you in your situation. But could you keep the faith? No. Could you keep great faith? Because God's mercy, it hatches.